Mark, Jay, and Azad.
Question 1. What preconceived notion did you have about AP World History during the summer before the year started?
Okay. Yeah. So I basically thought I was gonna die. I thought that it's a type of course where you don't take the course, but it kind of takes you as the year goes on, bit by bit. And I really thought that it was gonna be a transformative experience in some way, and that I was gonna have to really remodel my habits to find success.
Yeah, I thought I was gonna die. It seemed like a lot of work, and I did not think I was gonna have any free time or time to do basically anything. I thought I was gonna have to drop something, like either a sport or a club, but in the end, it worked out.
Yeah, similarly, I definitely thought I was walking into more of a challenge here. And I really did think, like Mark said, that I'd drop something or have issues with managing time. And I sort of spent the entire summer worrying and preparing and trying to figure out how I would deal with it. But again, it worked out in the end.
Yeah. Alright. Okay, question 2. What was your first impression of Mr. DiBernardo as a teacher or a person?
Yeah. So from the jump, from the first meeting, I knew that this was going to be a very intense class just based on Mr. D's demeanor. From the first meeting, he was very, very, very intense, and I kind of took that for him being scary. But as the year progressed and as I just learned that he's a very no-nonsense type of guy, and that you can basically approach him about anything, and he'll give you a reasonable, thought-out answer.
Yeah, so for me, Mr. D was pretty intimidating. He wasn't the person who was mean intimidating, but rather I just didn't know him personally. And I think my expectations of the actual class, of how hard it was going to be, influenced my decision on how he was going to be. But he has some pretty big muscles in his arms. So I was like, damn, this guy, he's some serious stuff.
I definitely thought Mr. D was a very professional and serious person.
Like you, Jay.
But over time, I do feel that I really developed more of a personal relationship with him that I really didn't expect when I started the year. Because at first I thought he was very no-nonsense and serious and professional. That was my first impression from the first meeting. He was very well-spoken. He knew how to control a crowd, and I think that was the first time I saw a teacher actually be able to control a bunch of high school kids.
And he's a very animated talker.
Yeah.
And it really works to help you ingrain all the material into your brain. It really works.
I agree.
I never liked world history before this class, really, but he definitely made it a lot more interesting.
Question 3. What was your first impression of the AP class after the first 10 days of academic challenges?
Yeah, the first 10 days were difficult. He assigned us, I believe, what would have been a week of homework in the first 4 days. And this is after completing a huge 50-page packet of some AP summer homework. So it was living up to the expectations set out by the summer homework. Over time, it got less intense, less challenging, and yeah, it worked out in the end, so that's great.
So I didn't really think that much of it. Like Azad said, we got a lot of homework the first, not even week, the first 3 days. That was pretty scary, but I didn't really get too stressed about it or anything. I think the best thing is just don't care, just go with the flow.
Yeah, like they said, it's definitely a lot of work right from the start. But I think when you're going into a class like this, you just have to be prepared with the expectation that you're going to be working from day one. It's not one of those classes where you have like the first week just getting to know each other, and then you start working. It's almost right away.
Next question.
Question 4. What was the first major challenge you faced in class?
That's it.
I think for me, the main thing was procrastination, because I was usually a student who didn't really who I knew I could get the work done on time, even if I didn't start it until the end of the week. But I realized that with this class, I wouldn't have the liberty to do that. So sometimes I'd be up, staying late at night, doing homework. But over time, I learned how to manage that and manage my time a little better and create a schedule that allowed me to get things done more efficiently.
Yeah, so my major first challenge, unlike Jay, wasn't procrastination, but I just did not understand what was going on. The format of the test was very new. There's a lot of information. Yeah, so I think my biggest problem was just understanding the format of what's even happening.
Yeah, I definitely had a difficult time adjusting from doing homework on a nightly basis to Mr. D for any of the students watching. He gives us homework on week just wait to the weekend, and usually the last day or the last even few hours, and we do all of the work at that point, which was not a sustainable habit and something I had to change quickly.
Question 4. What adjustments did you make during the first market period to improve performance?
Building onto that procrastination aspect, I definitely had to work on just making a to-do list and trying to manage time a little better, and that helped me a lot in just getting things done. Whether it's a simple list of things you need to get done, or you making a full schedule for all your classes and all your homework, and you definitely help.
Yeah, so I just had to practice the format. Like, we just keep practicing Alberts, which you guys will soon learn, and watching Heimler. Heimler saved us.
Heimler saved us.
He's the best. But yeah, I think just practicing everything, getting used to the format, it helps everything.
Yeah, I think I definitely changed in like how I budgeted my time. I resolved to, after the first 2 weeks, which I really struggled with doing all the homework at the end of the week, I resolved to budget at least an hour or two at a time every single night, and it really helped to get all my work done before the weekend so I can relax then and maybe get some extra practice in at that point. And also, a huge thing is if you have like a little brother or little sibling, please like explain it to them. It really works, I promise, and it really works to get the general concepts ingrained into your brain.
Question 5. As the year progressed, what style of studying for quizzes and tests worked for you the best?
Alright, so at first, my whole style of studying was like trying to make notes based on videos and just creating a ton of study guides, but I found out that really quickly that was really unsustainable because it takes a lot of time, and it doesn't really do that much, like for me particularly, I didn't find too much benefit from that, especially because with the homework every week, you're getting all the notes you need that Mr. D provides you with. So the main thing I did was, one, reviewing those notes, but then also watching Heimler, because again, he kind of saved us, and then also doing a lot of practice multiple choice questions, which helped me get ready for the unit tests. And yeah, that's really it.
So similar to Jay, I just practiced a bunch of Alberts, which were multiple choice, and I just watched a lot of videos, mostly off of Heimler in this one woman, I forgot her name, but I would just write down a lot of notes on them, and I use this method called active recall. It's from a Heimler video, so if you're probably stressed, you'll be watching that video soon, trust me. But yeah, getting used to the format of the test through multiple choice, just do a bunch of practice exams and questions, I think that's the best way to study for anything.
And as they both touched on before, it's a lot more about the general concepts, especially for multiple choice, which is usually what we're studying for, than the really small, minute details. So just make sure when you're studying to focus on the broad picture, the overall picture, rather than the smaller details.
Question 6. When and how did you realize you were improving, and how did that make you feel?
I think it was after the first couple of multiple choice tests, like the full unit exams, where I found that I was doing well, I was studying, and I was rewarded with good grades. And that's when I found out, like, okay, now I can do this, it's doable, which I think definitely helped motivate me and kept me going throughout the year. But yeah, I think progress will come over time. It usually doesn't happen until at least the end of the first month, because that's when you really start finding out how the class works. You're studying the homework for a couple of units and just learning the new concepts in general. But after that, you're definitely going to be on your way.
So I think I started improving after around mid-January, because that's when I started getting actually consistent good scores in multiple choice. This gave me a really big boost of confidence, and I felt like I wasn't going to fail the test. But I just think in general, if you try, you study, and go with your gut, you will get the score you like, and you will improve.
Yeah, for me it was also after the first few multiple choice questions, which I put a lot of work into. For basically the first time in my academic career, I actually had to study very hard and very consistently for multiple weeks to get the score I wanted. And it was incredible validation to have that score, and it just let me know that I was prepared for the road ahead.
Question 7. Did you work with other students in some kind of study group outside of class, school? And what did that look like? How did it help you?
Absolutely. So it was us three and then a couple other students as well. We would just sit, I was from behind the camera. We would just go to the library really after school. I think the main thing was we did this in combination with mock trial and Model UN. So while we were working on that, we also started studying for AP World. That usually entailed practice sessions where we were just going over essay prompts or multiple choice questions. It was less so going through the content, but more applications of that content in the exam. And I think that's really where you need to practice and study to just get used to how all of that works. And then in doing so, you're going to help in the long run in just developing your knowledge of the content anyways.
Yeah, so I did some study sessions with these buffoons, this guy, but yeah, so unlike him, who had 6 period lunch for some reason, we all met in Mr. D's room actually, pretty consistently, I would say. I think every single day we met in
Every
his room
single day.
and just talked about prompts, which is the AP World History content in general.
Leading up to the exam,
Yeah,
especially.
and I think in April that's when we started actually going after the library, all of us, to actually just focus on
Every
LEQ prompts,
single
multiple
day.
choice, all that stuff. And like Jay said, we were all doing similar stuff like sports, debate. So we just kind of incorporated that and integrated it into our study sessions. So
Yeah.
it helped a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly what both of them just said. And if you have a group of people who are also committed and are willing to put the same amount of work as you, it really motivates you to get better and to honestly compete with them, even. You know? So it really helped to have a study group. I strongly encourage any new students watching this to find some people that you can really study with and that you resonate with on an academic level.
Question 8. Describe your experience writing the DBQ essay at the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, the end of the year. How does your understanding change over time? And how important is it to go back and reread and review your writing after the fact? And how important is it to go back and read Mr. D's essay comments for writing improvement?
All right, so I'll start off by saying that the DBQ is definitely one of the main focal points of your entire exam that you should definitely be focusing on and preparing for throughout the year. So for my first 1, 2, maybe 3 DBQs, they weren't under a time limit. And I've always feel like I've definitely been able to write a lot, and I'm comfortable with writing. But one thing was that when you have about an hour or so on the actual exam to complete the DBQ, those first units I was doing it took me like 2 hours even, 1.5, 2 hours. And over time, that definitely shortened. So my second and third and everything after that, when Mr. D actually started putting time limits and constraints on us, I definitely improved a lot in that sense. But it's really just being able to know your content and get to the point in your writing. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be any form of great writing. As long as you're able to get those points, it's definitely that's the main focus of what you should be doing.
Yeah, so I still remember my first time writing the DBQ. It was like 11:30 at night. We had an English essay, and I did not know what was going on. I know it's the Song Dynasty, that's all I know. But it was pretty bad, I'm gonna be honest. I didn't understand the format, anything. Like Jay said, late in the year, like around I think either 6 or 7, when he actually started putting us under time restrictions, that's when I improved the most. And when I was doing it at home, when I was actually I was understanding what was happening, like Mr. D's columns that he gave us, and just reviewing what she wrote so you can get better the next time, that helped dramatically. And I think just practice. That's the best way to improve on DBQ.
DBQ is scary. Yeah, there's a very big difference between you writing not timed and then you're writing timed, and that's something I really had to overcome throughout the year. And especially for the DBQ, it's with documents, so you have to you have to both have prior knowledge, so if you can take it right out of your brain, very high level reasoning skills that you could use under a time constraint when you're analyzing the documents, and then also just even like a general understanding. It all comes together with the DBQ. And beginning of the year, very difficult, obviously, just like we touched upon. And it took a few tries and multiple hours of writing for the first few. You get through them. In the middle of the year, he starts putting time constraints on you, which progressively gets shorter. And at the end of the year, it's just practice. That's what it comes down to, just like Marcus said.
Question 8. Describe your experience writing the LEQ essay.
So I'm gonna be honest, like the first almost half of the year I was terrified of the LEQ essay. Not only did we not practice it during class because we were mostly focused on DBQs, but just the thought of having to come up with an entire essay with evidence and examples from more than 1,000 over the span of over 1,000 years of history. It was just terrifying because we had these prompts that now we have to write specifically enough to get points on an exam. And I had no idea how to approach that. But as you learn the content and as you develop your historical knowledge over time, it definitely becomes a lot easier. So my main advice for that is just trust Mr. D and what he's teaching you to do. And that really just helped me go with the flow and eventually get it closer to the exam time when you can develop outlines. And yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, so throughout the year, the beginning of the year at least, we did not write any LEQs, maybe like 1 or 2 throughout the whole year. in April is when we actually started writing LEQs. Mr. D started teaching them to us. I think, in my opinion, they're much easier to write than the DBQ. Not in the sense that you have to memorize everything, but the way it's written, there's only like a few paragraphs. It's so much simpler for me. But again, like Jay said, there's a lot of stress from actually remembering the things out of the heat of the moment. But I think as long as you watch Heimler and you study well, you'll be fine.
Yeah. The LEQ is the DBQ without the documents, so it's all out of your own brain. And like Mark said, it's very easy if you know what you're talking about. It's a huge caveat. And how it went structured throughout the year was, at the beginning of the year, it's basically all or nothing, right? So beginning of the year, you basically do no LEQs, maybe one, and then throughout the year, no LEQs either. But right at the end, maybe the last 2 months of studying, that's all. That's basically that should be your whole focus, right? Because if you could do an LEQ prompt, if you get that organization, it helps you for writing an outline for a DBQ, as well as like even reviewing the content. So LEQs are important in that sense.
Question 10. Describe your level of commitment when studying for the AP College Board end of the year exam. What style of studying for the College Board exam worked best for you?
All right. So I think I speak for all of us when I say we all really had a high level of commitment, especially when studying to this exam, because we all felt that this was one of the first like real academic challenges we've had. And because of that, we all studied a lot after school, obviously, in libraries. Obviously, trying to balance extracurriculars like sports. I had soccer in the fall. Now, me and Azad are doing track in the spring. Mark's doing volleyball. And we had Model UN and all of these other classes that we had to do as well. But whenever we could, just taking extensive notes and trying to really understand the concepts. This isn't really a class where you can forget what you're learning about throughout the year. It's really all cumulative knowledge that builds up and cultivates into whatever you get in your end of year exam.
Yeah, so like Jay said, I think we were all very committed, spent weekends, weekdays just dedicated to it. I think it's definitely important to prioritize this over your other classes because you will get a lot of work from your other classes. Especially this week, we got a lot of work. But I think the best way to study for it is Heimler and a lot of practice tests. Also, know your content. If you don't know your content, there's no excuse. There's nothing you can really do.
Nothing will make up for not knowing your content.
But I think the best way to be chill or nonchalant during the test is just to know the format and, I don't know, go with the flow.
Yeah. So I was someone who reviewed and watched the Heimlers and took notes throughout the year very intently. And that made it so at the end of the year, I didn't have to study as much as other people. I still study a lot. I study with these people, Mark and Jay and Ashra. And I didn't have to study as much because I reviewed very intently, and it was more so just unlocking that information that was wedged somewhere deep in my brain, rather than just learning full new concepts, so just like from basically nothing. So that helps out a lot.
Question 11. What was your overall experience with the 9th grade AP World History course? What are you walking away with that you didn't have before?
Yeah, it's a great question. It was a lot, really. There was so much I learned during this class. Personally, as I said, I never really had that great of an interest in history in general. Social studies had always been like one of my weaker subjects, but walking in that class and seeing Mr. D lecture and talk about historical developments and everything, it helps you with a new sense of interest in the subject in general. And over time, it was less so the content, but more just being able to manage my time and balance this class with other classes in my life. It really helps, I think, when you're preparing for the future and if you're going to take more APs or do a bunch of extracurriculars and clubs and all of that. I really learned how to manage my time properly and how to excel and also study because I never really used to study before this either. It was just a great class overall, and I learned a lot doing it, I have to say.
Yeah, my experience. Before this class, I didn't really care for history. I didn't really find a need for it. But this class actually, I wouldn't say it's a fun thing to study for me, but it's definitely interesting now. I understand it more, obviously, and I like traveling a lot. So this definitely helps me when I go places. I can understand what's happening there, all the culture, the tradition, the architecture. But yeah, overall, I think I like history a lot more now, and I think it taught me how to study and manage my schedule much more. Like Jason, if I want to take art classes or more AP especially with sports and extracurriculars. I think it was a great class to have, and I really recommend you do it.
Yeah, this class affected me on a very deep level, and it combined with the debate program on the UN on trial. I really was able to sharpen my analytical skills, my reasoning skills. I actually developed a pretty solid world history from this, and it's great having that context, just a general context about our world. And yeah, it was an incredible program overall, and like they were saying, if you plan to take APs in the future, or are balancing a large list of sports or any extracurriculars, it's a great way of figuring out how to manage your time.
Yeah, we also had a good teacher, so that definitely helped the experience.
And yeah, good luck
All
this
right,
year.
that was
Good luck.
it. Wait, cameraman,
Yeah, man.
show yourself.
Cameraman.